Now, before we start, I just want to highlight something that just happened. JP Morgan, quote-unquote, mistakenly deleted 47 million records, and the SEC says deleted records were requested in several probes. So yeah, everything of consequence was deleted probably, and those records more than likely did not only apply to cases within the SEC purview. So, JP Morgan, did you guys delete anything related to Epstein? My guess is yes. Yes, you did. Anyway, with all these lawsuits happening for JP Morgan, SEC probes, etc., what exactly is going to happen during the discovery phase? Can they now say, oh, sorry, that was deleted on accident? I don't know, but what I do know is that we have a lot of shady things going on. The main point is that we cannot continue to function with this level of corruption. Nothing is going to happen to those JP Morgan officials either. After all, it's just another honest mistake, I'm sure. Kind of like that quote-unquote accounting error that resulted in $6 billion being sent to Ukraine. What's funny about that is the fact that they just continue to recycle the same old lines. This is from May 18th. An accounting error frees up $3 billion for Ukraine. And man, I don't know, the Pentagon really needs to fire their accounting department. Oh yeah, I forgot, honest mistakes. If you somehow cannot sense the sarcasm, let me spell it out for you. We have no accountability nor the rule of law anymore. Okay, so let's get started with the main topics. Yes, we have a core group of people within our country that are trying to determine our fate, especially when it comes to initiatives that deconstruct the very principles that the US was founded upon. Now, lately, we are being bombarded with propaganda, and it's coming from all sides. So before we get into the incredibly dark and twisted plan, just remember, if they were winning outright, the propaganda would not be necessary. We are gaining ground every single day. And really, that is exactly why we can sense this desperation emanating from DC, and the various other power centers. They can sense their grip on the masses beginning to wane. And so, for the people defending corrupt politicians, I don't know, I have a hard time putting myself in the shoes of the establishment apologists. I have no idea how they believe the things they espouse. Again, as we talked about last week, they would say the same exact thing about me, the same thing about you. This difference in how we view these various events, this fundamental difference in how we all view reality, well, it's going to have widespread consequences. In fact, we are living through those consequences right now. For example, let's talk about this difference in reality. We are seeing the establishment politicians and their lackeys, the veritable deep state or whatever you want to call it. Well, we are watching them circle the wagons around their most corrupt participants. And then, of course, they use social media and legacy media to frame a narrative around their manipulation. It is truly something to behold. So, circling the wagons, so to speak. A good example of this is the Hunter Biden plea deal. Now, most of us knew this was going to happen. We knew this was the plan the entire time. They couldn't go after Trump, Republican voters, or really anyone threatening the regime without some kind of dog and pony show for Hunter. His crimes were just too evident. And ironically, everything they have done so far further proves this two-tiered system. However, if you were trying to alter perception of that, how would you do it? How would you offer up some kind of mirage of partiality and objectivity? How do they manufacture a narrative that we do have a just system? Well, it's simple really. Actually, it's very predictable too. So yeah, you just give him some bullshit charges for stuff that doesn't really matter, and everything else, well, it's going to be swept under the rug, quickly forgotten by the media. Again, very predictable. And I quote, President Joe Biden's son Hunter will likely receive 2 years probation and enter a diversion program, according to leaked details of a plea deal struck with authorities following his tax crimes and a federal gun charge. He will serve no jail time, end of quote. So yeah, he is basically just going to plead guilty to the least serious of his crimes to create the picture that we have a just system, which of course is going to be reinforced through the media narrative. Yes, they'll run around saying that this proves that everything is on the up and up, and it's not, okay? This is crazy. All of the shills came out on social media. The mainstream media ran with the narrative and will continue to do so. They will try to use this to dispel notions of a two-tiered system. The people in the comments, the Democrat voters, the leftists, etc., yep, now they're saying, wow, what a normal judicial system we have. See, no special treatment here, guys. Sorry to say, but you are delusional. If any pleb did anything like this, the gun charge alone, you would be in prison. Tax fraud, tax evasion, a federal gun charge that's simply going to be dismissed, and 2 years probation. Okay then, makes sense. I mean, I'm just saying, if you've had a buddy, a family member, or someone you know that's been on probation, then you know this is complete bullshit. Now, personally, I know some people that have received more probation time for way less. I mean, come on. Hunter Biden pled guilty to tax crimes and a federal gun possession charge. Again, that's likely to be dismissed. 2 years probation. Now, on top of that, well, do you think that Hunter is going to have to report to the probation office every week? Do you think he's going to have a curfew? Most people on probation do, I guess. Do you think he's going to be barred from traveling outside the county or state without explicit permission from the probation office? Nope. Do you think he's going to have to go in for drug tests once a week? Of course not. Yeah, the special treatment doesn't end with the probation sentence. It's going to extend into the terms of probation too. And yeah, I guess it's good to be the elite, huh? Now, just for context, and I quote, prohibited possession is 10 years. Lying on a 4473 form is another 10 years. So yeah, I don't know. 2 years probation sounds a bit light. But everything is on the up and up, they say, when in reality, it couldn't be further from the truth. So let's go over some anecdotes of the two-tiered system. So, as you all know, we had FBI raids for J6 people. I mean, do you guys remember that 69-year-old grandma with cancer? She got more jail time than Hunter Biden, and that's because Hunter Biden did not get any. Now, for those same people, what about the months of pretrial detention? Or their sentences that range from 5 to 20 years in prison? If you compare that to the sentences for the people in BLM protests, Antifa, you know, the Molotov cocktail throwing lunatics trying to burn down courthouses, well, nada. Not a thing. Nothing stuck. What about that White House riot on May 29th, where over 40 Secret Service agents were injured and that church was burned down? Nothing. No charges stuck. No raids for that. What about those FBI raids for pro-life protesters? But you know, that Jane's Revenge group that was firebombing pregnancy centers? Well, the DOJ and the FBI said they couldn't find out who did it because it was dark outside. Yeah, makes sense. Definitely not a two-tiered system, huh? What about those moms at school board meetings being called domestic terrorists, but trying to influence a Supreme Court decision by protesting outside of their homes? Well, that's different because that's just honest activism, right? Now, I could go on and on about this double standard, but I think you get the point. Some believe that we can't even call it a two-tiered system. I can't remember who said this, but let me know what you think. And I quote, "We do not have a two-tiered system. We have a justice system for one side and no justice system at all for the other. If it was merely two-tiered, we might be able to hold this thing together for another century. As it is, we got some French Revolution stuff coming." End of quote. So, I propose an experiment. We need 2 people to sacrifice themselves, though. We need one average guy and a Republican establishment guy. Now, you're gonna have to go out and commit the same crimes that Hunter Biden did, just the ones that are on this plea deal. What do you think is going to happen? Would you get the same treatment? Of course not. Now, chances are it's gonna backfire and you'll end up in prison for a long-ass time. But you know, let's not get lost in the details. Who's signing up? Let me know how that goes for you. Should we be surprised though? Of course not. As I said, this was predictable. Now they can go out and say that even Hunter Biden faced consequences for his crimes. After all, a plea deal admits guilt. But the main point is the narrative shift from this. However, my point is that they're going to try to use this Hunter Biden case as an excuse to target political opponents in the future. They'll continue to say, see, no one's above the law. However, you have to be very, very stupid to believe that. There are tons of people who are above the law. Just take a look at the Epstein clients. However, the circling of the wagons to protect their cohorts is not over. The Adam Schiff saga continues, and it really makes me sick to my stomach. Everyone praising Adam Schiff as a virtuous, honest man. Oh my god, it is mind-numbing. Now, if you want to subject yourself to some torture, listen to what some of these dummies have said about Adam Schiff. Besides calling him a virtuous, honest man, which I'm surprised they did not burst into flames as they uttered those words. But check this out. A congresswoman says that Adam Schiff, and I quote, protected us from fascism. And no, she appears to not be joking.
Congressman Schiff protected us from fascism at home and abroad. First, on the so-called perfect call, Donald Trump withheld a meeting and crucial weapons from President Zelensky to protect Ukraine from Russia unless they gave him dirt on now President Joe Biden.
Ah yes, Adam Schiff protected us from fascism. Wow. You know, I was going to go through all of this ridiculous stuff. I was going to list his lies about the Russian collusion hoax, but I've decided not to. I just can't take it. You are going to have to satiate your own torturous and masochistic tendencies by looking up the ridiculous gaslighting for yourself. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. Anyway, let's get back to the whole fascism thing for a moment. You know, it's funny. It's either projection or a straight-up inversion of reality every single time. So they say that Adam Schiff protected us from fascism, when in reality, by weaponizing the federal agencies against their opponents, they are making sure we fall directly into fascism via the World Economic Forum plan. By weaponizing these agencies, they ensure they can move forward with this global agenda of public-private partnerships, corporatism. I might add that weaponizing federal agencies against your political opponents is very fascistic in of itself, don't you think? But on that note, let's examine who is perpetuating fascistic actions. Which side is centralizing power? Centralizing power within the federal government and diminishing state rights. Oh yeah, not the populist right. Which side is merging government function with private corporations such as big tech, specifically to censor their political opponents? Oh yeah, not the populist right. Let's move on to another example. Despite what they all say,
well, we finally beat Big Pharma.
Remember, it's either projection or inversion, and in this case, it's inversion once again. They did not beat Big Pharma. They effectively merged them with the CDC and the FDA. These vaccine agreements amount to a partnership, a public-private partnership. So, which side is weaponizing judicial issues to attack people who disagree with their social agenda? Yep, the same people. They argue that hate speech should be criminal. And what is hate speech? Well, it's anything that goes against their agenda. Which side uses fear, intimidation, and physical violence to push their political agenda? Oh yeah, again, not the populist right. And do not worry, the feds who dress up as Nazis still count towards their side as well. I mean, I could go on. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not only the Democrats. Yes, the Republicans are in on this too, by sitting back and allowing it to happen, only occasionally offering up some platitudes to their base to keep them docile. It's all political theater. The main goal of the entire establishment is this fascist World Economic Forum vision, techno-fascism. Yes, I believe they view it as the only way to maintain power on the global stage, especially in the face of BRICS and China rising. Now, to finish up, I just want to remind you to be skeptical of the Republican establishment too. More often than not, they are paid to show up and lose. Yes, I believe it's a tactic used when they have to feign objectivity. After all, it's a Uniparty, and the Uniparty loves political theater.
We're disappointed too, but the difference is when regular folks do things that are wrong and unlawful, there's typically greater effort to try to get those people before a grand jury to utilize criminal process where appropriate, not for other purposes. And it's just like, oh, well, Bill Priestep, the guy who might have set this whole op in motion, he just didn't want to talk to you about certain things, and you were real accommodating to that. And then Mifsud, the person who juices Papadopoulos to create this predicate that you find improper. You guys, I mean, did you ever know who his lawyer was, Mifsud's lawyer?
Talked to his lawyer in Europe. I don't know if
so you could find the guy's lawyer, but you couldn't find him?
We contacted somebody that we knew had represented him in a part of the effort to try to locate him.
And you got the lawyer. And then now you're sitting here in front of the judiciary saying you could find the guy's lawyer, but you couldn't effectuate the service of a subpoena because you couldn't find him?
Well,
first of all, silly that sounds?
As you may or may not know, we wouldn't have the authority to serve a subpoena overseas. The lawyer didn't know where Mifsud was. He was in communication with him, but he claimed not to know where he was. And we were trying to arrange an opportunity to talk to Mifsud.
Did you take possession of 2 BlackBerry phones from Mifsud in any way?
There were phones that were provided to us by
so you could find the phones,
lawyer.
Not the guy.
Correct?
Do you see how silly this looks? Like you found the lawyer, you found the phones, but the actual dude who got ordered by Western intelligence to go start this thing you couldn't find? It's kind of laughable. It seems like more than disappointment. It seems like you weren't really trying to expose the true core of the corruption. That you were trying to go at it another way.
Yeah. As we said in the report, and as I said in my opening remarks, we pursued the facts as best we could.
Well, how about this
tools
fact?
That we have.
Okay, how about this fact, Mr. Durham? The entire Mueller team does a hard reset on their Apple phone in synchronization to wipe away evidence. Did you investigate that?
I've read that.
Well, why did you investigate it? Who gave the order on the Mueller team to wipe the phones?
Yeah, that was not something that we were asked to look at, and we didn't.
No, that's not true, Mr. Durham. That is not true, because I'm holding the document that authorizes your activity, and it specifically says the investigation of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. It's in Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the order that says that you're supposed to investigate these things. And so, like, whether it's the Mueller team, Mifsud, how about Azra Turk? Azra Turk, what's Azra Turk's real name? Do you know that?
I'm not going to be disclosing the names of FBI personnel that are otherwise unavailable.
But an FBI, so the FBI sends somebody to go honeypot George Papadopoulos. Who gave the order to do that?
I think that's beyond the scope of what's in the report.
It's literally the scope of what your charging order is. Who put it in motion? We get after it was put in motion, the FBI did a bunch of wrong and corrupt things. Totally understand. We're trying to deal with that. But when you are part of the cover-up, Mr. Durham, then it makes our job harder.
Yeah, well, if that's your thought, I mean, there's no way of dissuading you from that. I can tell you that it's offensive and that the people who worked on this investigation have spent their lives trying to protect the people in this country and pursue within the law
You went
what it is that we are
Mr.
authorized
Wait,
to
hold on.
do.
You tried 2 cases, lost both of them, and then the one guilty plea you got, Kleinsmith is back to practicing law in Washington, D.C. today.
That's beyond my control.
Right, but the fact that you allowed that plea to occur, right, and then the punishment was insufficient, the fact that you didn't charge Andrew McCabe, you didn't convict the lying Democrats or the lying Russians, you didn't investigate Mifsud or the Mueller probe, even though, as we sit here today in black letter, that was your charge. Have you ever heard of the Washington Generals?
The Washington Generals, yes.
Yeah, and they're the team that basically gets paid to show up and lose, right?
Well, I'm sure that the players who exert blood, sweat, and tears don't view it that way, but you might.
I think they do. Because the job of the Washington Generals is to show up every night and to play the Harlem Globetrotters. And their job is to lose.
I'm sorry, I was thinking of a different thing.
Yeah, so their job is to lose. And I'm kind of wondering, and it just seems so facially obvious that it's not what's in your report that's telling, it's the omission, it's the lack of work you did. And for the people like the chairman who put trust in you, I think you let them down, I think you let the country down, and you are one of the barriers to the true accountability that we need.
Do I get to respond to that or comment on that? Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've ever investigated a crime.
I don't know that you have. You didn't investigate these, Mr. Durham.
Whether or
How about
not,
Andy McCabe? Did you charge him? Did you investigate him?
Now, to officially end the video, I came across a quote from Carl Sagan. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, well then, we're up for grabs for the next charlatan. End of quote. Once again, this is HelioWave. If you like the content, like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if you want to. If you're in a position to, consider subscribing on Locals or Subscribestar. As always, make sure you disobey those true fascistas, and yes, I do hope you have a good night.